under Dr. Ronan Ramrup, who is the pediatric cardiologist. He and his team have been working with those patients, and he is a pediatric cardiologist or the children heart specialist. I think in total, they've come from various places. We've had one from Tobago, and they've all gone to Mount Hope, one from the Sangre Grande area, but the majority of them have been on the east-west corridor and the central area, and less so in South though. In terms of the demographics, they have been mainly mixed population, some Afro-Trinidadians and some mostly mixed, and a few Indo-Trinidadian, but mainly mixed and Afro, which goes with the normal trend you've been seeing worldwide, where it's a black and it's Hispanic or Spanish population has been affected, less so the Indo or Indian population and Caucasian, and even less so the Asian population. What he has found, the age group has been at least above 6 years old to about 14 years old. And he has had his data a set profile, which he could present at any time to PAHO. What he has found though, when they came in, they were sick. But before this, when we were having this setup, we knew about COVID and children. So we have our robust protocol set up that all the departments know about. So when they came through, we were able to treat them really aggressively, and they were all stabilized, and they've all had their heart ultrasounds or echocardiograms, and they are being followed up by him. So every week or so, he does the next echo on them, and they're all reviewed, and they've all been stable and well. So we've had no mortality at all, but we've had 20 COVID negative and COVID positive cases. In total, missy cases in Trinidad so far. The interesting thing, though, is that when we spoke to the Caribbean Society of Pediatricians, they found in total the other Caribbean islands had in total 9. So now that could be the 9 documented. So there might be a few still missed out. But we have found that Trinidad has had a larger number than the rest of the Caribbean, including Jamaica and Barbados. Now, most likely, we think it's because of our mixed population. So mixed population is usually good. In this case, it's showing that we might have a predisposition, but because we are so aggressive with them, we've had no patients who have had any mortality whatsoever, and we've been watching them very closely. So far, just to reiterate, we have had about 20 patients in Trinidad in terms of children who have been confirmed with MIS-C, and about 4 of them have been COVID positive. In terms of where we go from here, the fact is that it's Christmas time coming up. Now, I love Christmas, and I really want us to really enjoy Christmas, but the reality is it's cause and effect. If we follow the new normal, that means that for Christmas time, we're going to have to do the same thing, small groups. I know we want to, but what happens is that we ignore Christmas, and we ignore what our normal public health mechanisms are. We're going to do in the normal Christmas that we used to last year. We have a surge, we have restrictions, we're back to square one. So I am deeply requesting, that from now on we follow the mechanisms. And next slide, please. Last slide. I want to go with the list of 3s I've been talking about all the time. We mask it, guys. We mask it. We really have small groups. We want to make sure we do it for December, for January, for February. We have to go into a new normal, because that's the only way we would not have a massive amount of restrictions and have to go back again. We want to make sure we go to not double M, but double N. If we like Marshall Montano, we're going to like the double N, NN, okay? The next thing is to monitor it. We're going to watch ourselves for those comorbidities, try to exercise, reduce your stress. We're watching our older persons, and we're looking out for our children who are MIS-C and at risk of MIS-C. And the reality is, no matter how we try to resist it with our zesta parties and going with our limes, we have to adapt to the new normal. So from Christmas time, I know the minister comes on and says same thing every time to you guys, but this is me requesting for Christmas time. Let's focus on next year. We want our kids to go back to school. We want to have it where the borders are open. To do this, we have to small groups, make it our normal stance. Small groups, social distancing, wash hands, wear a mask. It's called double N, new normal. Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you.
Thank you. Mask it, monitor it, adapt to it. Thank you very much, Dr. Paul. We now invite the Honorable Terence Dialsing, Minister of Health, to present.
Thank you very much, Al. Good morning to Dr. Richards. Good morning to Dr. Joanne Paul. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the media, and to everyone listening or viewing on the various platforms this morning. I want to thank most sincerely Dr. Paul. I think she has probably given the best public service announcement in these COVID press conferences ever. The more people say it, the better, but I think she really encapsulated what the double N is, new normal. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to continue with the theme that Dr. Paul spoke about. And the reason for me coming last this morning, I wanted Dr. Paul to tell the country what is happening to our pediatric population. It's very, very concerning. But in doing that, I also want to thank the population for, conforming to the new normal. I want to thank Team Trinidad and Tobago for masking. And I'm really heartened by everyone who is making a conscious effort. Christmas, as Dr. Paul said, she likes it. I like Christmas. Who doesn't like Christmas? Who doesn't celebrate Christmas with lots of friends, family, lots of gatherings? Who doesn't? I do. I have said before, my house is like a train station for Christmas. But this Christmas, my house is off limits. And I'm hoping that every citizen heeds Dr. Paul's advice to have small gatherings. Small gatherings. Socializing is part of our DNA as a people, and that is good. But at this present time, it is something we have to resist. I am sure that many of us had plans for Christmas. I did. We did. But those plans are going to have to be adjusted now. If we work together in December, make the sacrifice now, invest in a 2021 where our children could go back to school. Could you imagine what a glorious day that could be, as the Prime Minister announced on Saturday, the plans for reopening of schools? Could you imagine what a glorious day that could be? That our children who have been home for the better part of 10 months to a year could go back out, and not only to learn, but to socialize, to play, hopefully not too much, but to socialize. That is so important. So I really want to thank everyone. However, there are some people still not getting the message. We are still getting reports at the Ministry of Health that organizations are planning Christmas parties. Businesses are planning Christmas parties. If you do that, think about the risk to your organization. It means if some people come down with COVID, and you as the business owner, you as the department head, get it? It means you have to quarantine. You have to spend Christmas in Couva. We don't want that. I want to congratulate His Grace the Archbishop, because in Monday's Express, if I could just put up this here, Church and Push Against COVID. And he really came to the fore and took up the gauntlet to advise the Catholic community that they are launching a 4-week public service campaign, which began on Advent on Monday, November 30th, and leads up to Christmas Day. This is the kind of messaging we want. So I'm asking all leaders of religion, not only the Christian faith, the Hindus, the Muslims, everyone, all the chambers of commerce, all the NGOs, the Energy Chamber, Pinal DB, Couva Point Lisas, Tunapuna, Sangre Grande, wherever you are, wherever you have a chamber of commerce, to talk to your membership, talk to your businesses. It's good business this year not to have a Christmas party. It's good business. The reason I came in last now is because I wanted to show a particular video clip to show the population who is thinking about a Christmas gathering to learn from experiences abroad. I'm going to show you a clip which I saw on CNN about 2 weeks ago. It's about a family, and the brief story is they were doing all the right things, but they let their guard down and had a gathering just before Thanksgiving. And then we'll talk afterwards. Could we have the clip, please?
With Thanksgiving 2 days away, one family in Texas wants to spare you from what they call the guilt of gathering. 15 members of the Aragonez family contracted coronavirus after getting together to celebrate a birthday on November 1st. After months of staying at home and wearing masks, and they tell their story in a public service announcement from the city of Arlington.
Weeks ago, I had family over at my house for some cake for my wife's birthday.
I went to my nephew's house and loved seeing my family, but now I'm fighting against COVID-19.
Now I'm fighting coronavirus.
We have COVID-19.
All my family had COVID-19.
When we took my mom to the hospital, our hearts broke. We feel guilty for gathering.
And Alexa Aragonez is with me now. You just saw her there in that PSA. She works in community relations for the city of Arlington, Texas, and she spearheaded this PSA of her family. Alexa, thanks for joining us to talk about this. And I certainly want to mention you didn't attend this event. You drove your mom to the gathering. So tell us about how your family came to this decision, especially after taking proper measures, but they decided that they wanted to get together.
Of course, and thank you for having me. My family believes that it's just like, many other families here in the U.S. that take their day very seriously. They cover and use every single precaution. And they think that just gathering with those that they know, with the family that's closest to them, that they'd be safe from COVID-19. So whenever that text message came through our group message of the family, we didn't think anything of it. I mean, we thought everyone else is taking care of themselves, and we knew that they're not putting themselves in harm's way. So my family just now regrets that decision where we decided to let our guard down.
And the timing of that is incredibly important because your family is, it's not unique. This is what families all over the country are doing right now. We can see that in the airport numbers. So tell us what happened. Tell us about how many people gathered. Tell us about how many people got sick.
Of course. My family, whenever they went over to my cousin's house, 4 of them lived there and 8 decided to attend. And all 12 of those people ended up testing positive for COVID-19 just 3 days later. After that, those 12 infected 3 more, making a total of 15 of my closest relatives having COVID-19.
Thank you for showing that clip. Ladies and gentlemen of the media and the public, what can we learn from the experience of the Aragonez family? They went to a gathering of family. After months of adhering to COVID regulations, they decided, as you heard, that they thought it was safe to gather. They trusted other family members. They are now talking about guilt. You saw a person in a birthday photograph looking well, and then the next picture is her in a hospital with oxygen buds in her nose, feeding her oxygen. You heard them talk about regret. If we do not adhere to the simple message that Dr. Paul gave this morning for that brilliant public service announcement, if we do not learn from the misfortune of the Aragonez family, we are going to have more than 20 children with Missy. Before we thought that the subpopulation carrying the brunt of this disease was the elderly, but coronavirus throws up something new regularly. And our children are now not immune. Thankfully, the children we have so far seem to be doing well. I hope and pray for those children to go home and spend a quiet Christmas at home. I am urging once again, I am joining with His Grace the Archbishop, I'm joining with Dr. Paul this morning to impress upon the last small group of people who are still insisting on having gatherings or Christmas parties or ham and hops lime or parang parties or vegetarian pastel parties. Learn from the experience of that family. It is not wise for this Christmas to bring different groups together, even though they are your blood relatives. They live in different parts. And when you come together and you interact, that is how coronavirus spreads in that family setting. And that family setting became a super spreader. So the final message is, let us celebrate Christmas. Christmas is about the birth of Christ. Maybe this year we could have a more holy Christmas than we have had in the past. But if you have to have small gatherings at home for Christmas, let it be not more than 1 or 2 relatives. And even when they come over, sit down in your back porch, your front porch, where there's open air, breeze. Still wear your mask. Only take it off if you're going to eat pastel or drink a punch of creme or a sorrel. But the simple public health measures of frequent washing of hands, wearing of masking, social distancing will help us have a good December, but more importantly, a better January in terms of numbers, so our healthcare system doesn't become overwhelmed. And as the Honorable Prime Minister has said, the ultimate prize for us next year is our children can go back to school. So I'm hoping that these messages this morning fall on fertile ground. And I thank you very much, Al, for the opportunity. And now we can go to our question and answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. Next on the agenda is the question and answer segment. We once again remind our media representatives to state your name and the name of the media house that you represent before asking no more than 2 brief questions. Please ask both questions, one right after the other, to the relevant members of the panel. Time permitting, we will try to accommodate another round of questions, allowing 1 question per media house in this instance. Today, we begin the question and answer segment with questions from AZP News.
Hi, good morning. Priya Bihari, azpnews.com. My first question has to do with thermal scanners. Employer reached out to us and he said that he had an employee who was supposed to go and do a job at another business space. And that employee didn't want to take the scan on his forehead, and he was refused entry because, so I don't know what is the legal ramifications of that and the law, etc. So, can I be clarified? And the second question, there are a number of complaints about the lack of social distancing on flights coming back to Trinidad and Tobago, and also in the transportation from the airport to the state quarantine. Can you all deal with these issues? Because people are complaining that they are still sitting very close to each other on the plane and in transportation to the state quarantine. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Priya, for those 2 important questions. I will take the first one. The issue of masks, as we have said several times here, an organization can determine who enters their compound, especially if it's a private compound. I have said many times, you will see signs posted up outside restaurants and bars, no sleeveless, no slippers, no short pants. So any company that wants to do thermal scanning is quite within their rights to do thermal scanning. There is no law to say it, but companies do have the right to refuse admission onto their private compounds. Okay? Dr. Richards, maybe you can answer the other question.
Good morning, Priya. Thank you very much for that question. First of all, I would like to reiterate to members of the population that this entire process that we have been managing for COVID-19, which includes the repatriation of returning nationals, has been an iterative and experiential process. That is, it has been a continuous learning process. So we, of course, appreciate the feedback from prior regarding the complaints about lack of social distancing and transportation social distancing. And so we have had this feedback on intermittent exercises. And again, I would like to reiterate that the logistics procedure is a joint exercise with several stakeholders, Caribbean Airlines being one, and the Ministry of National Security. What we would look into and we would provide you feedback on would be the actual social distancing and spacing, and we would look forward to having restorative measures in place, for example, the addition of buses to reduce the issue of social distancing. Another factor to note is that we have increased our repatriations from an average of about 80 to 90 persons to an average of 130, 140, because we appreciate that there are several returning nationals that would like to come home. So thanks again, Prior. We will take these concerns into consideration and aim to have them rectified from our next flight, which is today.
But let me just further clarify. Prior, you have to realize that we have instituted a requirement for a 72-hour PCR test before you board a flight. So that is a good screen to let people know that your chances of having COVID on those flights are greatly reduced. And that's the purpose of having that requirement for a PCR test 72 hours before. If we didn't do that, then the plane will have to come in half full. It means half the number of people could come in. So it's a matter of how much risk you want to take to get the best benefit. But I think what Dr. Richards said is valid, but I just want to add that is why we have the PCR test 72 hours before. You must have a negative PCR test before you're allowed to board a flight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Richards. Thank you, Minister. We now go to the Express.
Good morning, Kim Bodram from the Express. Minister, I think both my questions might go to you. You're speaking about the private party, sorry, not just private party, but the party issue coming up for Christmas, and private party meaning in homes as well. So just to go back to the talk of legislation to try to curb that sort of thing, we knew it was not a simple matter. Is it still something that's being looked at, and is there any update towards that? Also, the finance minister, MP Colm Imbert, yesterday he mentioned in the Senate that he had written to the World Bank seeking the release of the rest of funds that were granted to us for COVID vaccines in the coming months. Is there any more detail you could give us about that the population may find helpful? The vaccine issue is an anxious one for the country. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kim. Yes, so you're quite right. The issue of that legislation is difficult, and as I indicated on Saturday, I believe, or last week, the Office of the Attorney General is looking at it. But as I made the point, if people just do the right thing, we don't need legislation. Just be responsible. One, on the issue of the World Bank, yes, I took part in a webinar with the World Bank about 3 weeks ago. What is happening is that the World Bank, and I think I may have the figures here, the World Bank is going to be joining the COVAX facility, where they will actually be contributing towards the COVAX facility. I don't have the amount, but I can tell you that countries like Australia have anteed up 80 million Australian dollars. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation have anteed up money. 64 high-income countries are part of it. 184 countries in total. The European Union has put up 500 million euros in it. China is part of it now. So the lesson is, all of these countries and organizations are now becoming part of the financing of the COVAX facility. What that means for us is that the final price of the vaccine, which we don't know as yet, could be driven down as low as humanly possible. So thank you very much, Kim, for raising that issue.
Thank you. We quickly go to Tobago Channel 5. Channel 5, Tobago.
Oh, good morning, Candace Jackson from Tobago Channel 5. I just want to know what is the percentage of children with Miss C who have contracted COVID-19, and also just some clarification on the step-down measures. Um, we in Tobago, I know that just after the first 7 days in quarantine, you're allowed to go home and finish the additional 7 quarantine if you are asymptomatic. But that's not happening in Tobago. So I just want to know just a clarity on why that's so. And yeah.
Right. So thank you. So I will take the first question. I think for the second question on Tobago, that is best posed to Dr. Hoyt in Tobago or the Secretary of Health. So Candace, you read my mind because you want to know how many children we have with Missy and the pediatric population. We ran those numbers this morning before coming to the press conference. Of all the positive cases, we have had 9.6% under 19. So the demography has been changing over time. More and more young people. So 9.6% under 19, which works out to roughly between 600 to 650 persons under 19 who are positive for COVID. Of those, 20 have Missy, as Dr. Joanne Paul had said earlier. So those are the statistics. 9.6% under 19, which is about 600 to 650, and 20 children have had Missy. And as Dr. Paul has said, we have an abnormally high percentage of children with Missy in Trinidad and Tobago as opposed to our CARICOM neighbors. So it is vitally important for families with children, young children, to adhere to our pleas not to congregate too much for Christmas. Thank you very much, Candice.
Thank you, Minister. We quickly go to Newsday.
Good morning. Narissa Fraser from the Newsday. Dr. Paul, I know you said that the children who have Missy seem to be doing pretty stable right now. Can we get an update on how the children who do not have Missy are doing? For instance, I know we heard the 5-month-old in Tobago contracted the virus. The second question is about Miss A for adults. Have we seen cases of that in Trinidad and Tobago thus far?
Dr. Paul?
Yep. Just to respond to that question, thank you very much. In terms of the other children who have not had Missy, most children are very mild. In fact, the the one you mentioned in Tobago, in fact, we have 2 in Tobago, one a 5-month-old and a 6-month-old who have confirmed being positive for COVID, and they're pretty mild. I spoke to Dr. Hoyt this morning, and she also confirmed, and I also spoke to Dr. Manswell from Tobago, and they confirmed that those patients right now, those infants, have really mild symptoms, are totally well. And so we're looking at a large population of most of children being mild with COVID positive, but a certain amount of them being positive or negative and having Missy for us to consider. But those non-Missy children are very mild, very stable, and we're quite happy with their progress so far. But of course, it's for us to always be watching to see which children in our population at our homes who seem unwell. So that's why I really want us to be monitoring. It might be where they show obvious lung symptoms. They might just be having a mild runny nose, and then suddenly afterwards, a few days afterwards or a week or 2 afterwards, they seem to be looking more unwell. It's for us to look for those in our population to pick up really severely. But right now, to confirm that 6-month-old and that 5-month-old in Tobago are very mild and are extremely well. But they're still being monitored.
Yes, thank you. I just want to put in my 2 cents worth here on the issue of Tobago. I am concerned, as we all should be, that the cases in Tobago seem to be on the uptick. But my concern now is that with Christmas and the movement of people from Trinidad to Tobago, I want to impress upon the Trinidadians who are going across Tobago for a holiday this year. Do not let your guard down. In other words, the same public health measures you take in Trinidad, that is the social distancing, the wearing of masks, the hand washing, not gathering. Because you're on vacation, what tends to happen with people on vacation, you let your guard down because you are relaxed. You come to have a good time, you come to celebrate Christmas. My simple message is, Trinidadians going across to Tobago, please ensure that you comply with all the public health measures. It doesn't mean because you're on vacation, your chances of getting the virus are less. We're already seeing a slight uptick in cases in Tobago, both in the adult population and, as Dr. Paul has said now, in the young children, 5 months, 8 months. Trinidad and Tobago is one country. Let us respect ourselves and our fellow Trinidadians and Tobagonians this Christmas. Don't spread it to them. And if we conduct ourselves, we won't get it from each other. It is vitally important that we from Trinidad don't spread it in Tobago. So I'm just asking for people on vacation in Tobago to be, aware of that fact. Thank you very much.
And I'd just like to emphasize that the Tobago COVID-19 hotline is up and running. Call 800-HEAL, that's 800-4325. And for those persons who have things like fever, runny nose, sore throat, coughs, shortness of breath, headaches, muscle pains. The number is 800-HEAL, 800-4325. And with that, we go to Wired 868.
Hi, good morning. Fayola Bostic from Wired 868 here. My two questions. First of all, to the minister, other than moral suasion, I'm just wondering about gatherings we have in sport, because not national teams, but we are seeing incidents where football clubs are gathering for training. So I'm wondering if you had a direct message in terms of towards the coaches and the parents who are sending their kids to train in these clubs, what message we have to them and whether or not they are acting in accordance to health ordinances and what, if any, repercussions they could have.
Thank you.
Right, so that's my first question. And my second question would be, last time we had a press conference, a representative from the PAHO was here, and she spoke about the readiness to receive the vaccine before any vaccine is sent to Trinidad and Tobago. So I was just wondering if we had an update, first of all, on what readiness would look like and what is our state of readiness to receive any vaccine that may come to the country.
Thank you very much, Fayola. Two excellent questions. So as far as sport is concerned, the regulations speak to teams involved in national service, like national football team, representing Trinidad and Tobago are allowed to start back training. So Olympics, Red Force to represent Trinidad and Tobago in cricket, football teams, Olympics, they can train. What is not allowed is anything else. I spoke with the Commissioner of Police on this last week. So we are urging all of those persons, you are not allowed under the regulations to be training unless or congregating unless you are representing a national team. On the issue of vaccine, so PAHO last week, Wednesday, gave us a list of 18 requirements that we have to fulfill before we get vaccines. We got the list last week, Wednesday. It is basically in line with what we have set up. I would have told the country before we set up a multidisciplinary team. That is one of the requirements. It had to be headed by somebody. That has been done. It has to include logistics. That has been done. Finance. That has been done. Communications. That has been done. Monitoring and evaluation. That has been done. What will flow from that now is a checklist of 18 more detailed sets of criteria. We met with PAHO again this morning. We meet with PAHO every Monday and Wednesday before we come to these press conferences. We now have to report back to PAHO by December the 15th of our initial stage of readiness. They are quite happy with where we are now, but we have to submit a formal report by December 15th. That report is almost completed, and everything they have asked for to be submitted by December 15th is well under control. After that, we have to report to them every month afterwards on our stage of readiness. So we got the checklist last week, Wednesday. We are reporting on December the 15th. As of today, because I met with Dr. Edwards of PAHO, he was at the meeting this morning. He is quite happy with the progress we have made, and then we have to report every month. So everything is on stream as far as PAHO's evaluation of Trinidad and Tobago is concerned to receive the vaccines. But thank you, that was an excellent question.
TV6, we are ready for your questions.
Hi, good morning. Alicia Boucher from TV6. My first question is to Dr. Paul. In terms of the symptomology and effect, are we seeing any difference as it relates to Missy coinciding with COVID-19 compared to Missy appearing after COVID-19 in children in terms of the effect on them? That's the first question. And the second question is to Minister Diyal Singh. The last we heard from PAHO is that there was supposed to also be a member states meeting where member states would decide whether or not they want the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. Should the COVAX facility, should PAHO be successful in getting it into the COVAX facility, would TNT be considering acquiring that vaccine, and who would that best be suited to, as WHO and PAHO did say that different vaccines are better suited to different persons based on age, ethnicity, and those kinds of things.
Okay, so I will take the second question first, and then Dr. Paul will go. Thank you. That's a good issue to raise. As of now, Alicia, it's Alicia, right?
Yes.
Yes, as of now, Alicia, WHO has not authorized or pre-certified any vaccine. So any talk about the Pfizer vaccine coming to Trinidad and Tobago is premature. Let me repeat, there is no vaccine authorized by WHO. The Pfizer vaccine has received approval for the UK only, and I think tomorrow they go before the US FDA for emergency use application. Totally different concept. Also, as Dr. Wheeler said last week from PAHO, at that time, Pfizer was not part of the COVAX facility. There was talk about Pfizer becoming a part of the COVAX facility. I don't know whether that has been done. I have not heard anything. So talk about the Pfizer vaccine for Trinidad and Tobago at this stage is really premature, because they are, as I said, WHO has not approved any vaccine, whether it's the Pfizer vaccine, the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine, or the Moderna vaccine. Okay? Thank you. Dr. Paul.
Thanks for that question. So what we've seen is that the Missy cases have actually been following what's been happening internationally, and they have come forward about 6 weeks after the spike happened. So we started to have our first cases, I think, in late August, and they have stretched to now, and so we've had 20 in total since then. They were very sporadic, very one, and then that one next 2 weeks, but they have been increasing over the past 2 or 3 weeks. So Dr. Ramrup and his team have been regularly doing the heart ultrasounds and watching those cases. I think our difference with the, because we learned so much before with regards to international, so we were able to have our protocols set up. So we learned from their mistakes, and they're trying to go through as learning as they go along. So we learned from that. So in fact, we were very prepared. So when those cases came, we had no mortality whatsoever, but it definitely came after our spike. And that's why I don't want us to have a next surge, because I really wanted where if we look at the trajectory of it, we're seeing that after Christmas, if we if we don't do what we're supposed to do, we're going to have our surge like mid-January to end of January. Then we're going to have a messy surge February, March. And then we're going to have lockdown. We're going to have sick kids. We don't want to have that. So we really want it where we do what we're supposed to do for Christmas and All Years and New Year's and January. And we're going to miss Carnival, but we're going to just do our thing in terms of the mask up and small groups so we don't have that initial surge of COVID and that second surge of missy, because we want to take care of our children and our older persons and ourselves. But definitely we have had it typically to the rest of the world. 6 weeks after every surge, we have a surge of missy. So we'll see how it goes. Thank you.
Thank you. We now go to CL Communications. CL Communications. Okay.
Good day.
Okay, good morning. Go ahead, please.
Good morning. All right, Minister Diagasing.
Yes, sir.
What system does the ministry have to monitor persons who leave quarantine facilities? Since we are getting some reports of persons saying that after their 7 days quarantine at hotels, they are just allowed to leave without any monitoring where they go or what mode of transport they are using. Secondly, while at home, persons are saying that no one is calling them to verify if they are at home up until the quarantine period ends. They're saying basically that only when the quarantine period ends, that is when they get in this call. Thank you.
Okay, good morning. The system to monitor patients once they are discharged or sent on to their remaining 7 days at home quarantine is a joint effort between the Ministry of Health and the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. Right now, we have 592 persons who are in home self-isolation. And again, we look at a risk issue here because persons are tested on day 6 and prior to their discharge on day 7, their results are returned to them. Of course, if they are positive, a risk assessment is done with regards to their continued care. The management of these patients falls under the purview of the relevant county medical officers of health, of which we have 8 in Trinidad and 1 in Tobago. So the county medical officers of health have staff that contact persons to inquire about their symptoms and their care. If there is any sort of adverse medical events or any sorts of complications, communication is made with the hospitals and the persons are transferred. In addition to this, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service has a listing that comes from the Ministry of Health, assigned again by geographical nature and by division. And persons, there are random spot checks of persons who are on home quarantine. The quarantine period, again to reiterate, consists of 7 days state or state supervised facilities at the hotels and the 7 days at home. Regarding the transportation from the hotel, persons are generally allowed to go home once they are negative, and so we ask them to arrange their own personal transport with the relevant COVID-19 reduction measures, that is 50% occupancy in their vehicle, the appropriate wearing of masks, and social distancing. Thank you very much.
Let me just add one thing, my friend. If you have information that people are not adhering, if you and I, when I say you and I, if the media has that type of information, share it with the ministry confidentially, because I think we are all in this together, and we will take the appropriate action. So if you have confirmed information that Mr. X, Y, and Z of so and so and so is not adhering to their protocols, let us partner together and share the information with us so that we could protect as many people as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. TTT, we are ready.
Good morning, Head Table. Kimberly D'Souza from TTT News. I just have one question for Dr. Richards. Dr. Richards, I know you said that the quarantine facilities are almost at full capacity, but yet I know that we're continuing to repatriate nationals. Is there going to be a further thrust to encourage those who want to come home to pay to stay in those facilities in order to accommodate more people, or is the ministry looking at even adding more quarantine facilities? Because I know that the Minister of National Security said on Saturday that, more applications are coming and they're trying to see what they can do to accommodate those who want to come back for Christmas time. Thanks.
First of all, I would like to reiterate that the decision to approve exemptions to enter Trinidad and Tobago falls under the purview of the Ministry of National Security. With respect to the choice of whether to go to state or state-supervised quarantine, that again is a decision that is made based on communication between the repatriated nationals and the Ministry of National Security staff. The Ministry of Health only really gets involved once we have an approved list to identify which quarantine sites and the follow-up logistics in terms of testing and medical management of these patients. Thank you.
We have reached the end of today's media conference, and we would like to thank everyone for participating. We are still in the flu season, and so if you haven't had your flu vaccine as yet, please do so now. Contact your nearest health center for details. As you enter the Christmas season, please protect yourself and your loved ones. Have a Christmas health checklist. Don't let COVID-19 parang your home this Christmas. Gather at home only with people you live with. You can celebrate virtually with friends and extended family. Call, WhatsApp, Zoom. When moving around, limit crowds and stay 6 feet apart from others. Wear your mask properly, and when eating or drinking, please store this mask properly. Stay home if you are ill. COVID-19 is not a present you should give or receive from anyone this Christmas. We thank you for viewing and listening. Be safe, Trinidad and Tobago. Goodbye for now.